Quentin Tarantino is not the director who silently lets people go. He doesn't ghost actors. He blows them up. When a relationship dissolves in his world, it doesn't simmer. It explodes. Subtlety isn't in his lexicon. He's the kind of guy who will battle for an actor until the day he dies or burn a bridge publicly if you cross him. With Tarantino, loyalty is cinematic and betrayal is just as cinematic. For over 30 years, he's carved a career out of razor-cut dialogue, violent outbursts, and characters that are impossible to forget. Movies such as Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, Inglourious Bastard, and Django Unchained aren't films. They're myths, coolly constructed with complete accuracy and dripping in attitude. His sets are hallowed territory. His casting is impeccable, and when the vibe is wrong, he doesn't make an exception. He eliminates you. He has been described as obsessive, brilliant, difficult, even revolutionary. But under all that genius is a tough line. If you cross it, you don't merely lose a role. You're erased. No cameos, no callbacks, no old-timers reunions. You're gone. Written out of Tarantino's narrative as if you'd never been. Throughout his career, Tarantino has surrounded himself with a core group of actors who come back time and time again. Uma Thurman, Samuel L. Jackson, Christoph Waltz, Tim Roth, and Michael Madsen, among others. These are the actors who flourish in his universe, who give themselves over totally to his vision. But not all pass muster. 6 actors, in fact, went over the line via ego, tension, or outright conflict and found themselves forever banished from Tarantino's world. These are the 6 stars Quentin Tarantino has shut out of his universe and why they'll never get an invite back. 1. Lawrence Tierney, the veteran who blew up. When Reservoir Dogs was released in 1992, it was an eruption. A gritty, low-budget crime thriller that upended independent film forever. Tarantino was just 29, helming his first feature and set on making each frame count. To add weight to the film, he hired Lawrence Tierney to play Joe Kitt, the seasoned crime leader who assembles the crew of thieves. Tierney was a 1940s noir icon who made a career out of playing hard guys with ice in their hearts. He provided the film with old-school menace. On paper, it was ideal casting, but behind the scenes, Tierney was a nightmare. Crew members found him volatile, unpredictable, even threatening. He forgot his lines, clashed with Tarantino on a daily basis, and yelled at other actors. Michael Madsen later remembered that Tierney's presence infected the mood. Each day was a roll of the dice. Would he make it through a scene without blowing up? The flashpoint occurred over a disagreement about blocking a scene. Tierney and Tarantino burst into a screaming argument. Tierney stormed off the set, and Tarantino, youthful and inexperienced but not about to lose face, followed him out and discharged him on the spot. Later, Tarantino summed up the ordeal bluntly. It was like dealing with your senile uncle who's off his meds. Cast members also supported him. The mayhem Tierney caused almost wrecked the entire production. Letting him go wasn't merely a professional choice, it was personal. Tarantino wrote the part specifically for Tierney. But when the vibe became poisonous, he emotionally dropped him long before the shoot ended. Tierney never got a call back after Reservoir Dogs. No cameos, no nods. Not even a mention when Tarantino spoke about the movie's history. For him, if you go across the line, you're not forgotten. You're eliminated. 2. Bruce Willis, the star who didn't sink. 2 years on, Pulp Fiction revolutionized film. It revived John Travolta's career, made Samuel L. Jackson a legend, and made Tarantino Hollywood's most sought-after director. For Bruce Willis, it was a career revival moment too. By the early 90s, box office clout for Willis had diminished. Flops such as Hudson Hawk, Color of Night, and Striking Distance had dented his image. Tarantino's Pulp Fiction provided his redemption in the figure of Butch Coolidge, the street-fighting boxer. It was grimy, gritty, and bespoke for a comeback. On screen, Willis delivered. His acting as the exhausted fighter trying to get out of the mob is legendary. Off-screen, though, something did not click. Tarantino's scripts are scripture. Every word, every breath, every beat crafted. Actors are supposed to execute them verbatim. Willis was accustomed to improvisation, to twisting words to fit his manner. His Hollywood strut conflicted with Tarantino's fanatical accuracy. Crew members remembered the tension. Tarantino demanded precision. Willis demanded liberty. The payoff? Distance. Travolta and Jackson became Tarantino's lifelong collaborators and friends, but never Willis. Tarantino barely speaks of him in interviews, even when heaping praise on the Pulp Fiction cast. It isn't open contempt, it's colder than that, erasure. Willis himself has been diplomatic. He's never spoken ill of Tarantino, but he's never validated Pulp Fiction as the career-mending moment that it was. To most actors, the movie would be a touchstone. For Willis, it's an afterthought. Loyalty is rewarded with legacy in Tarantino's universe. Get out of step and you're done. Willis made one movie glow, then disappeared into thin air. 3. George Clooney, the Top Gun who failed to impress. Tarantino collaborated and penned From Dusk Till Dawn, directed by Robert Rodriguez in 1996. It was a pulpy hybrid of crime thriller and vampire horror. It was George Clooney's first high-profile film role following ER, catapulting him to stardom on television. Clooney played Seth Gecko, a smooth-talking criminal paired with Tarantino himself as his unhinged brother. The film became a cult hit and helped launch Clooney's film career. Given Tarantino's tendency to recycle his favorite actors, you'd expect Clooney to appear in future projects, but he never did. The motive wasn't secret. Years on, Tarantino outright stated, "George Clooney is not a movie star. No bad tone, no retractions, just rejection." He stood firm, daring folks to identify any great Clooney movies. After 2000, Clooney didn't let it slide. He spoke up for his body of work, referencing Ocean's 11, Syriana, and Michael Clayton. But the harm was done. The respect was lost. For Tarantino, film stars are not necessarily red carpet glamour or box office viability. They're about immersing themselves in roles, infusing them with danger and unpredictability. Clooney, to him, was too glossy, too secure, too Hollywood. Since From Dusk Till Dawn, Clooney has never been cast in another Tarantino film. Not a cameo, not a mention. For a director who lives off recasting actors from one decade to the next, that was deafening silence. Clooney's career took off elsewhere. He won Oscars, directed movies, fronted franchises, but in Tarantino's world, he was forgotten completely. For Spike Lee, the rival who went to war, not all fallouts were behind closed doors. Some were public battles, and none more explosive than Tarantino versus Spike Lee. The feud began with Jackie Brown in 1997. Lee criticized Tarantino's frequent use of the N-word, accusing him of being infatuated with it. "I'm not against the word," Lee said. "I use it, but Quentin wants to be made an honorary black man." Tarantino fired back, "If Spike Lee can't appreciate Jackie Brown, then I'm sorry for him. He has no right to tell any other artist what they can or cannot say." Then came the line that made headlines. "Spike needs to shut the F*** up." The divide deepened years later with Django Unchained. Lee condemned the film outright, calling it disrespectful to my ancestors. He refused to even watch it. Tarantino hit back harder, claiming, "I think his problem is that I'm doing it better than he is. He's just mad because I'm making the black movies he wishes he could make." This was not an argument, it was war, and it never let up. There has been no apology, no healing, no recognition of shared ground. Tarantino has hired hundreds of black actors, but he has never hired anyone in Spike Lee's orbit. Both men are still giants of film, but they do not intersect. Tarantino's assertion that Lee was envious of his success solidified the separation. That was not just incendiary, it was closure. 5. Steve Buscemi, the ally who faded away. Steve Buscemi played Mr. Pink in Reservoir Dogs, delivering one of the most memorable rants in indie film history. His refusal to tip waitresses became an instantly iconic scene. Buscemi's dry wit and nervous energy seemed tailor-made for Tarantino's dialogue. And yet, after Reservoir Dogs, Buscemi fell off the map of Tarantino's world. Contrary to Michael Madsen or Tim Roth, who were made regular players, Buscemi was never recalled. Why? Speculations are rife. One is the tipping debate itself. Some of the actors alleged the scene was an actual exchange Buscemi had off camera and that Tarantino took exception to his opinions. Years later, Tarantino even joked that if Buscemi were willing to come back, he'd have to play a waiter. Only it wasn't actually a joke. When questioned why Buscemi wasn't featured in subsequent movies, Tarantino dismissed it. Sometimes people get one shot. That's the story. Chilly words, particularly for the man who initiated his career as a director. Buscemi, to his credit, never griped. He continued on to critically acclaimed performances in Fargo, Boardwalk Empire, and numerous other endeavors. But fans took notice. Amid a filmography filled with frequent collaborations, the omission of Buscemi stood out. Tarantino's silence here was different, less explosive than with Tierney or Lee, but no less final. Not a fight, just a fade into nothing. 6. Warren Beatty, the icon who challenged the director. Few tales are more insightful than what occurred with Warren Beatty. Tarantino penned the part of Bill in Kill Bill with Beatty in mind. The combination of menace, charm, and tragic weight seemed made for the iconic actor. Beatty and Tarantino sat down, talked about the character, and started working on it. But the collaboration didn't hold up. Beatty, a director himself, needed a say. He made suggestions, changes, even tone adjustments. Tarantino did not stand for it. David Carradine, who ultimately replaced Beatty, later described, "Warren was trying to direct the director. Quentin doesn't play that." Tarantino replaced Beatty unobtrusively, providing only a mysterious reason in interviews. "It wasn't going to work. I needed someone who understood it wasn't their story." That single sentence said it all. For Tarantino, control is supreme. Every line read, every camera position, every silence is his. Beatty's desire to influence the role wasn't collaboration. It was intimidation. And in Tarantino's universe, there is no place for that. Carradine went on to deliver a performance for the ages as Bill, and Beatty's name vanished from discussion entirely. No drama, no feud, just erasure. Conclusion. Talent alone is not enough in the world of Quentin Tarantino. Loyalty, submission, and rhythm do the trick. His movies aren't collaborations, they're orchestrations. Every performer is an instrument, and if one plays offbeat, he doesn't recast the music. He takes away the instrument. That's why actors like Samuel L. Jackson, Uma Thurman, and Christoph Waltz thrive in his world. They surrender to the vision completely. But for Lawrence Tierney, Bruce Willis, George Clooney, Spike Lee, Steve Buscemi, and Warren Beatty, the clashes were fatal. Step out of sync with Tarantino, and it doesn't matter how big your name is, you're gone. No rewrites, no reunions, just silence.